Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Red Rock Chess. I hope you guys are having a fantastic start to your guys' week. Today, we're going to be recapping the first Lecce International Open. If you guys are new to chess, please make sure to like the video and subscribe. Comment down below what your guys' favorite chess player is and maybe your ELO. I look forward to responding to everybody's messages, so please feel free to reach out. And without further ado, let's jump in right into the video. Awesome. So in today's gameplay, we are going to be watching two grandmasters. One's actually an international master, and one is a grandmaster. Their name is Aditya Mittal for the grandmaster and Vantika for the international master. So Vantika is playing with the white pieces. They are both from India. So what we're going to be watching right here is the queen's pawn being pushed open with the knight being brought to the c6 square. The c4 pawn gets pushed out, and the reason for this is there's many openings that can be created, like with the London system, everything like that. And what black can do to counter is just, they have so many variations what they can do to eventually counter. What black does in this situation is they bring out the pawn. The reason for this is there's eventual check, there's castling, bringing out the pawn, just eventual development in the black area. White brings out their knight, and the main purpose of this is just to eventually do the exact same thing, castle short. The best move for black is to move the pawn right here for the exact reason to eventually bring out the bishop, create some opening, and attack and fight for the center of the board. This right here is a good option to take, but the better option is just to bring out the knight right here. Knight g3 is a good option right here. And that's exactly what happens. Knight c3 is one of the best options. Black defends right here in the center of the board just in case white were to take right here with the pawn or the knight. Eventually, this bishop does get brought out right here to the g5 square. It is pinning to the queen, but it can eventually easily have multiple ways to defend it. Black decides that they want to kick out the bishop immediately, so takes and takes was what happened. This white queen moves open to eventually do two things. It creates some strong pressure to attack the center of the board, and if this bishop were to ever leave, it's just capturing and creating a threat. Black shifts their queen back just so that they can eventually just have a strong defense in the center, eyeing also the king. So great tactical move by black. This is when white decided to take right here in the center and is captured. Now this is open right here, so white will really need to start to defend to order either castle short or even castle long, depending on how much pressure they can put on the white. They castle long, and it's a good move because there's just a lot of opportunities to create threats right here for black or for white. This queen gets shifted over just so that it can start eyeing and create more problems for the queen. The only problem is that this queen has moved a little too much in the last couple moves, and we'll see that the development of black is still gonna cost. We have three pieces already developed right here, and this white rook is eventually going to get really active. That you can push the pawn up all the way and start to create more threats right there, and there's just a lot of opportunities for white to create threats. This is exactly what white should be doing. They are creating problems in the center of the board. Black can take or they cannot, and it doesn't matter too much because white will either just recapture or take right there and eventually just bring out the bishop, connect the rooks right here, and that is going to be really solid fundamentally for white. And the reason why he didn't take immediately is because he's putting a lot of pressure on this right here, and he can take this back at any moment. If he goes to defend it, it's just too passive because this bishop right here will just start to bulldoze the situation, and it's going to create a lot of problems. This move right here is an absolute great move, and the reason for that is if white were to bring this out right here, it would just get chomped up right there. And so that is what happens in the game. and it gets taken back right here. This right here is just to not let the opportunity slide by, and just a castle right here. It is also threatening this pawn right here. Not too big of a worry, because then it could just eventually just get taken right there. So this knight gets thrown into the center to attack it. If this were to take right here, it just opens up the file for the rook right there, so not the best move by black. So the best move is to castle right here, which is what black does. And now white's going to start to assert dominance on the king side of the board. And the reason for that is that he doesn't want, they don't want the queen side to start some counterplay, so you have to really flank your pawns and start to create some problems for white. What that means is just sending your pawns all the way up, everything like that, so that eventually you can have an open file, shift your queen over, and start to create some real threats for checkmate. This is exactly what Vatanica does. This queen is now under attack, so he has to think of ways that he can maneuver it. The best move for white right here is queen c2, and the reason for that is because it eventually has some opportunities for some unforeseen attacks that could happen. This is one of the second best moves. It's queen b3, and it still allows white to eventually create some threats. This pawn is under attack right here. And the reason why it doesn't matter too much is because it's way better to capture that piece right there. And that's exactly what they missed for the black pieces. Because once you take this, it exposes the king a little too much. And this move right here is to just simply trade off the bishops right here. They know that, and so the best move right here is just to take. That's exactly what happens. And it's actually better to push the pawn forward instead of taking. And the reason for that is once you take right here, this is just way too, it exposes your king way too much. And so what happens is they bring the knight out, and what they were trying to hope for was that the queen could come in right behind and create some problems. The nice thing is that white is really solid, and they're very, very smart at how they structure their middle games and end games. No matter what, the queen still is trying to create some threats, especially right here with takes right there. But once you defend it, there's not really much that white can do. They're just trying to create any problems that they can. This right here is a very strong move, but you obviously don't want to hook anything right there. So if this were to take, you would take with check right there. And this right here cannot be promoted because of the king. But then again, it just, once you push this pawn all the way up, it takes too many moves to get there. But right now you should really be focusing on just moving your knight out of the way. This is also not the best move. The best move in this case is actually knight to c5, which is right here instead, because then when the bishop takes, you can eventually just take right there, and there's just some opportunities to make some good moves. So the knight jumps in, it gets taken, and right here, this horse gets taken as a result. The best thing to do is just trade the queens, especially because you are up two elo, like two points right now, which isn't the craziest. Right now, black is actually winning on time by 10 whole minutes, which is a huge advantage, especially when you're 2,500. And this right here, this pawn is attacking right here. But the best thing that you could do in this case is actually knight e3. So just bringing this back right here so that you could eventually defend and attack right there. They just take, and for the reason once this is taken, you could eventually just take this pawn back. This is going to be taken right there. The reason why it's not the best move is because of this move right here, and that's what happens. The next best move that they make is this move right here, and that's what happens too. This right here is what the best move is, and that's also what happens. So white is playing phenomenal right now. And with how things are going, there is 3 pawns for black and 4 pawns for white, and they both have rooks. So if white can just trade off the rook somehow. So if black were just eventually trade, you could just look at trading the knights, and then you have one passed pawn. You can march your king up right here and start to take. And this move right here is absolutely phenomenal. It targets the pawn with check right here. He takes, and he's threatening this pawn right here. And this is where white starts to march down their pawn. Black makes one of the best moves and attacks. The reason for that is you could take right here, and you're eventually threatening to take the last pawn right there. Check is not really the best move right here. The best move in this situation is actually king a2, just getting out of the way and eventually just starting to march your pawns up one by one. And you'll just see a lot of shuffling right here. You can see like a lot of shuffling, and the best thing to do in this case is actually not to take. It's actually to bring the rook back to c2. Also a great move, bringing it back to c1. This is not a good move right here, because after this move, once you take, this is just a solid position for white. And once it's defended, this king cannot come over to help the rook. And so you'll see a lot of tactical games, like maneuvers by both players right here. Because once you were to take, if you were to take this rook right here, it destroys everything, because now there's nothing you can really do to kind of win the position. So great move by white to check the king, get out of the way, and then eventually push the king up right here, kind of to also attack the situation right there. And what you might be thinking is just to deliver check right here, and the reason why that's not a good move is because once this king moves out of the way, it's the exact same situation right here, and so you don't want that. So once that checks right there, you just see a lot of shuffling around the board, and this is where the game really starts to bring out the smart endgames inside people. And what I mean by that is right here, this is where the game comes to a conclusion, because right here you can see that check right there, and now the king is cut off. He cannot come and help he can't come and help the black rook. And so this move right here is exactly where the game ends. Black resigns. The reason for that is once the king slides out right here, king c7 is the best move, and it just cannot stop checkmate. Once you give like a check right here, there's nothing you can do, because you cannot stop this now. And so even if you were to slide right here, you're risking check, and then say you were to slide out right here, you're just creating a lot of problems. You're eventually going to go into like check right here. When you slide over right here, you have rook e4 check. When you slide over here, you're just looking at like a lot of problems right here. And so right here, king g6 is probably the best move right here. Queen f6 is the next, and then right here, this is just absolutely disastrous, and the only thing that they can do right here, and that's just mate. So this game would have ended brutally if black kept playing, but as you can see, this is a really strong video to point out like what you guys can be doing in your games. And what I personally suggest doing is taking the time to analyze other strong players' games, so that way you can continue to develop your own skills. If you did benefit from watching this video, please make sure to like the video and subscribe to help promote Red Rock Chess. We are very grateful for everybody that does subscribe. We are currently at 22 subscribers. Our goal is 500 before the end of the year. So if you aren't already subscribed, please make sure to subscribe and stay tuned for the next videos. Thank you guys for watching.